traveling to consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Catch Up with Clayton. As always, I'm your host, Clayton, and in today's weekest episode, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. I don't have a lot to give you, but I have important stuff to give you. And a big thing that revolves around is what I've been thinking about in relation to the Traveling to Consciousness brand and what special time in my life it is on today. Well, you're probably listening to this on Thursday, but for me, it's actually occurring right as I'm recording this, which is my solar return. Or no, solar return's your birth. That's wrong. My Saturn return. So what's happening right now is Saturn is getting back to the same point in the sky that it was whenever I was born. This is something everyone goes through. It's called your Saturn return. And so every 27 to 29 years, Saturn takes its time revolving around the sun. It takes roughly that time frame. So in that time frame, once you hit about 27 to 29, and then it happens again whenever you're in your late 50s, so like 57 to 60-ish. And then once again, if you make it to the beautiful age of about late 80s, what happens is you experience your Saturn returns. Saturn is returning to the same spot in the sky, the same point against the same stars that it was whenever you were born. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, it technically means a little bit of different things for other people. For me, it is very much because my Saturn is in the constellation of Pisces. Mine is a lot more relationship grounded. It's a lot more emotion based. So for myself, I've been kind of going through my emotional maturity. Now, again, at a meta level, Saturn returns happen for everybody. For me specifically, it's related to my emotional maturity. So before we even dive even deeper into this, I think there's an elephant in the room that we need to discuss. We need to discuss what is the legitimacy of this, because I think that's a valid thing anytime you discuss something in spirituality. A lot of these things could just be taken out of context, or it's just a whole lot of woo-woo that sometimes people just want to kind of push off to the side and say, nah, I'm good. That's no. And I think astrology falls into that category that people have a tendency to push away, because our logical mind comes in and says, all right, Clayton, Saturn's thousands and I almost said millions. Is Saturn millions of miles away from us? I'll have to check that out later. It's a long distance away from us. Saturn is really, really far from us. So what does that mean? What does it mean that Saturn's really far away from us? Well, it means that the logical mind comes in and says, okay, there's no way that Saturn has an effect on us. The intuitive side of the brain says, yeah, kind of does. I mean, there's an energy associated with these huge balls of mass. I mean, that's essentially what gravity is. The moon, we obviously all know the impact that the moon has on our physical being, right? It's so close, it's so big. And yet things like Saturn or Mercury or these things that are so far away, we have a tendency to think don't have actually an effect on us at all. And I'm certainly more of the belief, if we break this down logically, all of these planets are made up either of some gases or some rocks or some sort of materials that are energetically linked to some sort of vibration, some sort of material, some sort of frequency that, of course, like it kind of, if you started now analyzing it, it actually makes sense that the position of any certain planet would have an effect on your body. Now, I do want to say that I believe you can get to a place where you can overcome this energy. Because I see a lot of times, especially in the astrology community, where people will dissect your birth chart and they'll say, oh, you must be this, you must be that. I'm sure you've seen classical examples where people try to guess other people's zodiac signs. And again, I think it's very possible. I see a lot of parallels in it. But I also believe and maybe even more so believe in, and it's not even really a belief. I guess at this point, it's just a knowing. I know that you are able to transcend the nature of your zodiac calendar. And at some level, that seems like a part of the goal, not the goal, a part of the mission that we are on here as humans to overcome those egoic desires. I truly feel that there is so many lessons that are probably embedded in our birth charts and our zodiac signs and all that stuff, our natal charts. But it shows you, I think, the egoic karma that you're coming into this life. And it's super valuable. That's beyond valuable. And then the goal is to transmute, to transform, to transcend those egoic personas that your birth chart tells you. And I think this is beyond valuable to get to that point. But I'm going down a different rabbit hole. The whole point is about Saturn return. And so at a meta level, let's talk about Saturn level at a meta level. Saturn return, the idea is that things will start to shift in your life. And it comes with this dual nature because people can tend to get afraid of this. They can be worried about their Saturn return. They can be a little bit unsure, uneasy, uncertain, a little bit of nerve-wracking. And so the thing that you should be aware of if you're under the age of 27-ish and you're listening to this podcast, or really if you're under the age of 58 or under the age of 88, because you're going to hit another one. And even more so, if you're over those ages, you can be a case study. Look at your life around the ages of 27 to 29. Was there a big pivotal shift thing that occurred? If you're over the age of 58 and you're listening, was there a big pivotal shift that occurred around 58 to 60? Because this is really when we start to come into our own. And I also find it fascinating because I know I don't know if it's specifically in Hindu culture or belief structure, but I am well aware that I believe at least, I believe it's Hindu. I really do. And I wish I had the name for it off the top of my head, but essentially they say that once you're hitting the age of 32, kind of 30-ish to 32, that's when things start to either to self-destruct or really take off in your life. And I'm thinking solar return has the same exact effect. And I truly believe that people are afraid of this energy because of that. They're worried. Am I out of alignment? Is this not working out? Yada, yada, yada. But I think it's even more important for you to take a step back, look at your life up until this point, ask yourself, how many times have I seen an event occur in my life and thought to myself, this is it, this is the end, this is terrible, this is awful. And then only a couple months, maybe a couple years later, was that event an eternal blessing? Because without that event, you wouldn't be where you are today. So I always find this an important point of the dualistic nature of looking at these sort of things, which is just that, looking at, okay, just because everything's falling apart, that means there's going to be a whole lot of fun new stuff coming in. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And guys, honestly, I'm kind of going through it a little bit emotionally, speaking of. So I'm going to kind of try to hold back on putting too much energy into this podcast. And it's kind of funny because it's part of my Saturn return, which is emotional maturity. So here we are. And yeah, kind of going to just chill on that. I'm feeling a little anxious lately. I have been also putting a lot more effort into YouTube. So if you're interested, go check out my YouTube channel. You can search Clayton or Traveling to Consciousness and you'll find me. But with that being said, I really don't have any more to add. So I will see you guys in the next week's episode. And if I don't see you there, I will see you in the 6th dimension.